Welcome to Shadowproof. Evidence first, noise last.
There is one person on this side and one person on that side. Both have big eyes and are looking at us. They are still there. Alright, where is it? In my living room. So there are two people, two beings in your living room? Yes, and they are very large. They look like they are taking care of us. One person is hiding behind the sofa. What about the other one? Are they waking up? A very big belly? They're talking about spring and looking at something. Some of my friends kept talking. Otherwise, how could they appear so boldly? However, it is unfortunate that we did not find any reports related to this incident afterward. But during the search for documents, we noticed one thing. Actually, since the 1960s, Dr. Hynek, a scientist in charge of the Alien Investigation Project, the U.S. Project Blue Book, had early on claimed that they had made contact with aliens, even knowing the purpose of their coming to Earth. And all of this started in 1945. That year, the United States ended World War II with 2 atomic bombs. However, strangely, after World War II ended, the US continuously reported on people seeing unidentified flying objects, or UFOs. Especially in 1947, the number of UFO sighting reports even reached a peak. At that time, American newspapers almost every week published a feature related to UFOs. People kept discussing, what could these frequently appearing UFOs be? Not only were the people curious, but the US government also thought about this issue. Therefore, the United States subsequently established many projects to investigate, including the famous Project Blue. The establishment of this project had 2 main purposes. First, to use scientific methods to analyze and investigate UFOs. Second, to determine whether UFOs posed a threat to national security. During the active investigation by the US government, the project investigated a total of 12,608, but among them, as many as 11,917 reports were considered to be due to human misjudgment or false reports. Therefore, the U.S. government ultimately decided to terminate Project Blue Book in 1969. Notably, although 11,917 cases were considered explainable, there were still 701 reports classified as unidentified. You need to know that if even one UFO were of alien origin, and among these cases, there is one very special report. The reporter of this case not only said that they had seen a UFO, but also had visited the aliens' planet with their consent. More importantly, this report was also acknowledged by Dr. Hynek, a scientist from Project Blue Book. Today, let's talk about the most incredible alien contact case, the Andreessen incident. Today's story needs to start with Joseph Allen Hynek of Project Blue Book. He is a famous American astronomer who participated in the U.S. satellite program. Because of this, when the U.S. government established Project Blue Book, they immediately invited Hynek to be the project's advisor. Notably, in the early stages of the project, Hynek was actually very skeptical about UFOs. He even believed that most UFO sighting reports were lies made up by bored people to attract attention. However, what Hynek did not expect was that, along with the project's investigation process, he changed his mind, even publicly declaring, I started participating in the project thinking it was all a psychological issue, but it turned out to be a completely different matter. And that made me believe we have a real problem to solve. You can believe me, the UFO phenomenon is definitely not a lie, because I have studied it. According to Dr. Hynek's account, when he received a letter from someone saying they had been on a UFO, he was very curious and decided to read on. It turned out that the mysterious letter sender was Betty Andreessen, an American woman living in Massachusetts. In 1954, Betty married her husband James. After marriage, they had 7 children together. Although the couple's income is not high, thanks to the farm operation, their life remained stable. Initially, Betty thought she would have a normal life like her mother, but in 1967, an unexpected event occurred. That year, Betty's husband unfortunately had an accident and had to be hospitalized for treatment for a walk. As father, fearing she couldn't. On the evening of January 25th, with her father's help, the family had just finished dinner. At that moment, Betty's father was busy repairing things in the shed. The children were watching TV in the living room, and Betty was washing dishes in the kitchen. Everything was proceeding normally. But for some reason, around 6:35 p.m., the electricity in the house suddenly became unstable, and after a flicker, the children screamed in fear, and right in that chaos, a beam of light from outside shone into the kitchen. Betty followed the light and saw a giant, multicolored light landed on their lawn. At this point, she realized something was wrong. Instinctively, Betty immediately ran into the living room to find her children, only to see them standing. While she was bewildered, something suddenly flew into the living room. However, the door was tightly closed. Even more frightening, what flew in was not an object, but a person. After witnessing the strange scene before her eyes, Betty was too scared and couldn't help but scream. Then, in an instant, Betty suddenly found herself lying on the bed, and the people from earlier had disappeared without a trace. At this moment, Betty sat dazed on the bed, thinking incessantly. Could it all have just been a dream? But why was this dream so realistic? Thinking of this, Betty suddenly remembered the children. So she immediately ran to her children's room. Fortunately, the children were all safe. At this point, Betty unconsciously looked at the clock. It was already 10:40 p.m. But strangely, apart from the power outage and the strange light shining from outside, Betty couldn't remember anything else. She didn't even remember how she got into bed. Betty didn't intend to dwell on this matter either. After all, she still had many young children to care for. But 2 days later, Betty's eldest daughter suddenly told her that she had a very strange dream. In that dream, the house lost power, and outside, there was a continuous red light shining in. This was exactly like what Betty experienced that day. Therefore, to verify the incident, Betty asked her father. To her surprise, Betty's father not only also saw the strange light, but also saw 4 people emerge from it. After hearing her father's account, Betty's memories suddenly came flooding back. She remembered that on that evening, she too saw the mysterious light. She also saw people emerge from that light. They even flew into the house. In a letter to Dr. Hines, Betty described, after recovering her memory, she clearly remembered when the mysterious evil passed through. First they transformed into a bright sphere. Only after completely passing through the door did they transform back into entities. When she saw this scene, Betty truly couldn't believe it at the time, because she is a devout Christian. So at that time she thought they must be angels, because the Bible describes Jesus can pass through objects, even walk on water. The question is, why do their appearances differ so much from angels? In the letter, Betty also included a few illustrations she drew herself. She described these people as having heads as big as pears, almond-shaped black eyes with almost no lights visible, no ears, and no nose. But in place of the nose, there are 2 holes. The mouth is just a slit. Among the 4 mysterious individuals, but still only about 121 centimeters, and he seemed to be a captain. Betty said, even though everything happened very suddenly, for some reason, she didn't feel scared at that moment, even feeling a sense of familiarity with them. At this point, the one who seemed like a captain suddenly spoke to Betty. Hello Betty, my name is Kwaska. Upon hearing the mysterious person speak, Betty was extremely astonished, because she was certain that Kwaska had not opened his mouth, nor made any sound. In fact, the sound came directly into Betty's head. The notable point is how Kwaska knew Betty's name, perhaps because so many strange things happened that day. After a few seconds of hesitation, Betty decided to respond, hello everyone, do I need to bring you some water? Or something to eat? No, our food is different from yours. We need fire-refined substance. Fire-refined substance. That's okay if we don't. Betty went to the bookshelf in the living room, took a Bible, and handed it to Kwaska. And then a miraculous event occurred. When Kwaska held the Bible, it emitted a stream of white light. At the same time, it kept thickening, as if Kwaska had used a special ability to restore the lost content of the Bible. But this wasn't the most miraculous part, because after the Bible bit him, it transformed from one volume into 4 volumes. Thus, each alien present at the time held a Bible. And in less than a minute, they had finished reading the entire book. Notably, while reading, the aliens' left eye kept twitching continuously. But by now, Betty no longer found these things strange. And after the aliens finished reading, Betty asked a question. At this moment, Betty began to hesitate. First, she was willing to help, believing these aliens were angels. But if she went with real angels, what would happen to her children? Thinking of this, Betty turned to look at her frozen family members. And then, just as Betty was having these thoughts, Kwaska, who had the ability to read minds, once again communicated telepathically with Betty. Don't worry, nothing will happen to your family. We won't harm them, they are very safe. But just as Betty recalled this important point, her memory fragments resurfaced. According to Professor Hyde's account, during the Wallabot Project investigation, he noted that there were many cases where, after encountering extraterrestrials, people experienced memory loss. Therefore, after discovering that Betty's family also showed such, he immediately dispatched investigator Raymond Fowler to investigate. Notably, since Hines was a scientist, when investigating UFO events, his research team would not blindly trust eyewitness accounts, but would investigate the entire event using scientific methods. During the investigation, hypnosis would be used to help witnesses recover memory, while comparing witness testimonies with physical evidence, analyzing the witnesses' personalities, and even using lie detector tests. Then, after more than a year of in-depth research, both Hines and Raymond agreed that what happened to Betty was a very rare type of fourth-kind encounter. It turns out that Dr. Hines also classified credible UFO sighting events into 3 types. Type 1 encounter refers to cases within a distance of about 150 meters, where a UFO is seen and its shape can be described in detail. Type 2 encounter refers to cases where physical evidence is, such as traces on the ground, scorched grass, or excessive radiation. Type 3 encounter refers to cases where not only is the UFO, but the extraterrestrials inside are also visible and communication occurs with them. Notably, with the subsequent emergence of more extraterrestrial-related events, the original 3 encounter types were further expanded and supplemented, leading to Type 4 encounters. Type 4 encounter refers to cases of abduction by such as the highly famous incident involving the couple Barney and Betty Hill. Type 5 encounter refers to cases involving close contact with extraterrestrials. Type 6 encounter refers to cases involving conflict with extraterrestrials, like the Cash Lantern incident, which is a typical Type 6 encounter. Type 7 encounter refers to cases where humans and extraterrestrials develop intimate relationships and even produce offspring. Type 8 encounter refers to extraterrestrial invasion of Earth. Type 9 encounter refers to cases where humans and extraterrestrials establish diplomatic relations. As for the Enrisen incident we are discussing today, it falls under Type 4, except that Betty and her family had their memories erased. Therefore, Dr. Hines also sent hypnotist Harold Arostein to investigate. However, what surprised the doctor was that, by the end of the investigation, the Enrisen incident was far more complex than the aforementioned types of encounters. In the end, Dr. Hines even believed that the Enrisen incident was the most important extraterrestrial contact report to date. So, what exactly happened to Betty that could shock Dr. Hines so much? In 1977, Raymond led a professional investigation team to meet Betty. Through the team's assessment, they believed it was necessary to conduct hypnosis on her. So, with the help of the hypnotist, Betty returned to that night. At that moment, the extraterrestrial Kwaska stood before Betty, using telepathic means to invite Betty onto the spacecraft. Did you go up afterward? Yes, because I believed he had come for her. Betty replied, yes, because I believe they won't harm me. As soon as Betty agreed, Kwaska signaled for her to stand behind him. The other aliens lined up behind Betty. Just as the formation stabilized, Betty suddenly felt a strong pulling force dragging her back. In a flash, she had passed through the door of her house. Did she also pass through the door? Poet Paulina. Yes, I was also very astonished. The moment I passed through the door, my body had a strange sensation. It was somewhat like being surrounded by an electric current, and the whole process happened very. Not only did she pass through the door, Betty was now outside the house and discovered her legs were floating in the air. Didn't her neighbors see her? They didn't, as fog from somewhere rolled in and covered our house. Specifically, we searched the weather data recorded in the town of Asbury, Massachusetts on January 25, 1967. We also found that at 8 p.m. that day, the temperature was about 43 degrees Fahrenheit, or approximately 6 degrees Celsius, and this means that in that area that night, there was very light real fog. As group passed through the fog, she saw Kowalska. Just as the line of people was about to crash into the spacecraft, the hatch suddenly opened and Betty boarded the craft. And not long after, she regretted it. Dr. Hynek once said that the most special point of the Anderson incident was lung detail. Betty Anderson's testimony was very comprehensive. Although Betty had lost most of her memories, through hypnosis, she recovered all the lost memories. This is an extremely important point because when people enter a hypnotic state, they cannot lie. Later, Mr. Raymond also publicly released Betty's polygraph results in his published book to prove she truly did not lie during the examination. We can even see that when Betty recalled some particular memories, she was very frightened. Betty said, after the IOPO hatch opened, I entered a semicircular room. There was nothing in this room. It was very bright inside. I could see there were 2 doors here. At this moment, Waska was standing near the other aliens, as if they were exchanging something through telepathy. After they finished exchanging, one of those aliens signaled for me to follow them through the door on the right. At this point, I saw a glowing spiral staircase. This staircase was floating in the air. It was extremely long, so large that I didn't think there could be such space inside this IOP. The feeling inside the spacecraft at that moment seemed not to be in the same spatial dimension. What was even stranger was when I lifted my foot. Thinking I would climb the stairs, I instead flew up again, and then drifted along the staircase, flying into the room on the 2nd floor. Right in the middle of this room was a circular platform. One of those aliens explained that this was a device that it helped purify the body. At that time, without any suspicion, I stood on it. And immediately the device was activated. The pink glowing net descended, and at this very moment, I discovered I could no longer move. And I was moving continuously downward with the device into the room below. Can you tell us where you are now? I am on a table in an operating room. I am not lying down or floating. Everything here makes me shudder. You are very safe now, don't be afraid. Are you alone in the operating room? No, Kowalska is also here. I told him I don't want to be here. And what did he say? He told me not to be afraid, but I'm very scared. According to Mr. Raymond's account, after Betty entered the room, she suddenly became extremely frightened. She even lost control and said, "Why do you have to put that inside me?" You're putting that inside me and it is going up and it is bypassing something. I don't like it. And I can't go. It hurts. When Betty finished saying these words, everyone suddenly realized that Betty had actually been abducted by aliens. At that time, this was an extremely unusual event. Because in the 1960s, cases of alien abduction were not common. And after being abducted, undergoing surgery was even rarer. A relatively famous case was probably the abduction in 1961. Therefore, when investigators discovered that Betty had also undergone surgery, they were utterly astonished. Betty continued, "They inserted a tiny tube into my nose. Did you feel any pain?" At first, yes, but after Kowalska placed his hand on my forehead, the pain immediately disappeared. Next, I heard a sound as if something had broken. It seemed the tube had pierced through something. And then after the tube was pulled out, Betty saw a strange metal sphere. It turned out that, for some unknown reason, there was a tracking device in Betty's nasal. During the recent examination, Kowalska had discovered it. At that moment, Betty felt very puzzled as to why there was a tracking device in her body. And so she asked Quasca. But Quasca just told her not to worry and said they were now about to take her to the aliens' planet. Since traveling to the aliens' planet required traversing space-time, they even specially placed Betty in a protective chamber. Betty said, in that protective chamber, there were many human-shaped seats connected to many tubes. After Betty sat down, she discovered these seats were softer than they appeared. Somewhat like soft rubber, but transparent. When Betty sat down, a cage descended. At this point, Betty noticed that the protective cabin had secreted some kind of special, and then not long after, she lost consciousness. Strangely, Betty later discovered she could breathe directly in that fluid. Importantly, according to our investigation, breathing underwater is not inherently impossible. In 2008, an American lung surgeon, Agnolan, announced to the world that he had invented a device capable of breathing underwater. Although this technology is not yet fully mature, Agnolan's invention at least confirmed one thing. Breathing underwater is not impossible. It's just that human technology is not advanced enough yet. After an unknown amount of time, when Betty regained consciousness, they had arrived at, do you know the location of this planet? I don't know, but I asked Quasca. He told me it's not yet time, but later they will tell us. Us? You mean Quasca knew later we would hypnotize you? No, not later. They said now, at this very moment, they're talking to us. When the research team heard this, Betty wasn't recalling memories but was connecting with the aliens. Raymond's team was utterly shocked. Although his team always firmly believed in aliens in the 1970s. Cases of communicating with aliens through consciousness were extremely rare. So the team at that time was truly almost terrified to the extent. In fact, not only the investigation team was amazed, but even Betty herself. And so, after calming down a bit and through discussion, the hypnotist asked again. May I ask, who exactly is speaking with us now? Betty replied in an extremely peculiar tone, we are one, the raw material. At that time, they indicated to humans that they are a group from the social memory complex, sixth density. Simply put, they are a group of aliens possessing collective consciousness, and they are one. Could it be that the aliens Betty encountered were that group? The raw material. That currently Earth is transitioning from the third density to the fourth density. During this transitional phase, humanity will face many challenges. Coincidentally, after the discovery, the OLANUNET team began dialogue with the aliens. The aliens are also addressing a similar issue. They even directly warned that humanity needs to enhance spiritual awareness. Otherwise, Earth will definitely encounter problems. In the next episode, the OLANUNET team will continue to introduce the planet Quasca, what kind of world it is. Does the assistance dimension truly exist, or are there others involved? Most importantly, if spiritual awareness is not enhanced, where will human power ultimately lead? Thank you for watching. If you found it useful, please subscribe to catch the next videos. Or if you have time, you can watch more videos on this channel.
If the proof convinced you, subscribe and open the next case.